What's up, guys? Back again for some more One Piece action. Today we're going to be doing another theory video. One Piece chapter 1086 is out. If you haven't checked it out, make sure you go check it out first because we will be spoiling it, but now that you have. So today I'm going to be talking about the Mother Flame and Emu and Vegapunk and kind of their relation to each other, a little bit beyond what was just given in the chapters, as well as kind of theorizing about the significance of the Mother Flame, which I think some may have kind of partially overlooked when going through this chapter because there was so much other hype things going on. But let's jump right into it. So starting off in this chapter, well, not starting off the chapter, but in the chapter we have the Gorosei sitting in there, in the room we normally see them in, and they're having this discussion about Sabo and how he seems to be fated to always be around the deeds and everything they're involved in. And one of them starts to talk about, I think it's St. J. Garcia, he starts talking about, well, right now we'd like to deal with the egghead situation, but it seems like we'll have to kind of put that on the back burner and deal with this current situation first. And then as they're having this discussion, they get a call from Emu, who's in the garden right there. And Emu calls and basically tells them, I want you to use Vegapunk's weapon. The time has come to test the Mother Flame. And this is the first we've heard of this, the Mother Flame. And as they go further on, they start talking about, well, it's true, we haven't had a chance to test it yet. And they kind of are going back and forth, like, should we test it in a forest, should we test it in a sea? But then Emu steps in and is like, no, target Lelouchia Kingdom. And at first, like, as soon as Emu says this, the Gorosei are kind of like, my lord, like, that's a heavily populated island. It's they're very hesitant just because it's a kingdom. I think they were thinking they were gonna test it on an unpopulated area at first, but Emu's like, no, take out Lelouchia Kingdom, and he's like, because it's close. And at this moment, this is a little bit further back in time before Lelouchia actually explodes, before Sabo gets there, before Sabo makes the communication. So at first it kind of seemed like they targeted Lelouchia in order to take out Sabo, but after this chapter we see that wasn't necessarily the case. It had already been predetermined by Emu to target Lelouchia, and it just so happened that that was the direction that Sabo went, and that he just happened to be making the communication when the attack went underway, because obviously the attack didn't just appear out of nowhere like that. Whatever that dark shadow was that Sabo described probably had to move its way into position. It's kind of getting like Arc Maxim vibes, thinking about it like, oh, a flying ship or something in the air that settles over. But in this they say it's true we haven't had a chance to try this out before now. So when I read that, at first I was a little hesitant in thinking, oh wait, this is a brand new weapon that they've never tried out before, so this can't be the weapon that they used to target God Valley all those years ago. But the more I kind of read on, the more I started to think about it. I was like, no, this, in the way that they're referring to it, I think, me personally, I think they're referring to they haven't had a chance to test the weapon using this Mother Flame as a power source. Because I believe, and I think, Ivankov alludes to, I think everyone's pretty clear, like, this is probably Uranus that was used to destroy Lelouchia. But I also believe it was Uranus that was used to destroy God Valley. But similar to that suit of armor that we saw back in like 1067 or 1068, back on Egghead Island, that Vegapunk was explaining, like, it has a power source that we are unable to replicate. So it went on a rampage for a little bit, but then it kind of lost its battery life and it's died out, and I haven't been able to replicate it yet. But in 1068 we know that Vegapunk expresses like his whole dream is to create a giant free power source for the world. And they kind of start going into the implications of like, oh well, if you create a power source like that, you would basically eliminate a lot of the conflict that erupts between nations, because a lot of times they're fighting for these resources for to power their nations and to energize their nations. But if you all of a sudden just create this free energy source that anyone can access and it's available all over the entire globe, like, that's a big chunk of what we've been fighting about for the last 800 years. You'll get rid of that. So if you think about it in that sense, the person that controls this power source will essentially control the world, kind of, depending on how you view it. That could be a good thing or a bad thing. So in this case, we have Emu over here wanting to test the mother flame. They're talking about how this test is going to dictate how they handle the egghead situation. And when they're referring to this, I'm guessing this is more kind of, if it's effective, we no longer need Vegapunk. But if it's not effective, we may have to rethink killing all of them and, keep one of them alive, or keep the main Stella body alive and take him prisoner. But later on in the chapter, we see the revolutionaries, when Sabo is describing what happens, and they start freaking out, and they Sabo's like, this wasn't a natural disaster, and this wasn't a living thing, implying like this was a man-made something, like a ship or a weapon. It's created by a man. And right now, the way that we see the One Piece world, the only one with enough intelligence to kind of create something like this on this grand scale is Vegapunk. And as soon as that kind of happens, Dragon, who has this connection to Vegapunk, is like, no, he would never, just willingly create a weapon of mass destruction. And especially because Vegapunk is modeled after Albert Einstein, I see a lot of similarities just beyond the look of him. A lot of times in real world, Albert Einstein gets associated with the atomic bomb, but in actuality, he didn't actually work on the Manhattan Project to develop the atomic bomb. In fact, he was barred from doing it, and all the scientists that worked on it were not allowed to consult with him because he was deemed a security risk. Vegapunk's role in kind of the atomic thing is he penned a letter basically warning the US that Germany had split the atom or learned to harness it and would be able to weaponize it. And in the US, that began the Manhattan Project and the race to create an atomic bomb first. And then we saw, in real world World War II, especially since this is a manga and it's from Japan, we know the atomic bomb was used in Japan, so it has a lot of cultural significance to the people of Japan and their views and stances on it. So I think kind of we're seeing Oda's kind of views on it kind of come to light, but he's still paralleling real world, where we see Vegapunk initially looks like he's kind of getting the blame for developing this mother flame, this weapon, but in fact it's not actually a weapon. He developed a power source, and Emu and the Gorosei have the knowledge, since they potentially, especially Emu, are from 800 years ago. They know about the void sentry and the technology, or some of the technology. They may not understand it completely or be able to design and replicate it themselves, but they know how to apply it to existing things. So in the case of Uranus, they used it once before, destroyed God Valley, and that depleted it. That's why we haven't seen it thus far. And then now all of a sudden Vegapunk finally discovered the mother flame, and now Emu is racing to weaponize it and use it in Uranus, and he tested it. And same thing like how Einstein was warning the US, you could potentially have Vegapunk, once he sees or hears about what happened in Lelouch, realizing like, oh my god, the power source that I created, they've already weaponized it. They already had something, and he probably can put two and two together and realize like, oh my god, they were in possession of Uranus and they haven't used it because they haven't been able to power it this whole time. So now I created this power source, which my intention was not to create a weapon. My intention was to create something that would essentially, or help to end wars, not to fuel them and get greater. But the application, in the real world of the atomic bomb, yeah, you'd want to, harness the energy of the atom. We've seen all the the benefit society has gotten from everything that we've learned from the atomic bomb and all the process that goes into it. But again, that weapon itself, when you weaponize and harness the atomic energy, it's extremely destructive. So there are multiple ways to use this energy to harness and control the world. But we see Imu, he likes to be kind of evil and hell-bent on, Iron Fist. So he's going to weaponize it and use it in Uranus. And he's going to view Vegapunk now, especially that he's seen, okay, it can do the job. Like, it's not like, oh, the power source wasn't good enough, it wasn't very powerful. No, it took out the entire island, so it works. I no longer need Vegapunk. I need to eliminate him before he becomes a security risk, especially knowing that it was confirmed to us by his clone that he is studying the ancient weapon, or not the ancient weapons, but he's looking into the Void Century. He's looking into ancient kingdom technology that they have on Egghead. So that's why they're moving, or they were initially about to be moving towards Egghead to get rid of him. And also getting the positions of the Gorosei members like we do in this chapter now makes a lot of sense why it's Saint Jay Garcia that's going, because he is the science, the defense science warrior god. So this is right up his alley, Vegapunk. So he's probably going there to secure the Mother Flame, or whatever technology they need from it. And that's why they were trying to determine, do we need to keep Vegapunk alive? Can we just eliminate all of them? Do they want to maintain Punk records? Is there a way to do that if you eliminate all the Vegapunks and still maintain access? But again, you have Vegapunk, who again is stylized after Albert Einstein, and in the real world, Albert Einstein gets confused with the creation of the atomic bomb in much way the same way that we see Vegapunk kind of getting associated with the creation of this weapon, when in fact Albert Einstein in real life created the equation that explained, I believe, the release of energy created by the atomic bomb. He didn't actually create the means to make the bomb itself, to weaponize it. And we have the same thing with Vegapunk here. He created an energy source that he intended for something else, and it's being manipulated and weaponized. And again, like I said, Japan, they have a lot of feelings about the usage of atomic weapons, and it's understandably so, since they're one of the only places in the world that have ever experienced that, the people have ever experienced that. We've had meltdowns and stuff like that, but that's not the same as having a bomb, dropped on your village. But now we see Imu essentially doing the same thing, and we see Vegapunk, and it just has a lot of correlation. But when I went back and looked at Vegapunk's dream, then that really made me start to realize the significance of the Mother Flame. Not only for Imu being able to weaponize Uranus, but also now I can kind of understand why Imu wants to eliminate Vegapunk, because it's not just Uranus that he could potentially power. We've already seen one of these suits of armor, or these mech suits that was on Egghead Island. Imagine if, on the way to finding the One Piece, you discover the actual location of the ancient kingdom, or it's at Laugh-Tale. When you get there, there's just an entire army of these suits that couldn't be powered up. That could be why Roger and them laughed, you know what I mean? But now you have a power source that's capable of powering. It's comparable to whatever power source they had in the Void Century that allowed these weapons to be used, that allowed the mech suit and Uranus and the ancient weapons to be used the way that they were. Now you do have this power source. If someone else other than Imu and the world government gets their hands on this power source and they discover this army, then all of a sudden now they have the world's, potentially the world's strongest army, like even stronger than the giants, because they're mech suits. So they're not, they don't feel pain. They could just get destroyed, keep a licking, and keep on ticking, you know what I mean? But that really, I was like, wow, now thinking about the Mother Flame, like, it has a lot of significance. Again, even if you used it in a positive sense, you use it as Vegapunk intends. He wants it to be this free power source to power the entire world and kind of eliminate the need for wars over resources. Like I said, you would still essentially have control of the world if you were the one in control of this power source, and you could use it in a positive or negative way. You know, if you were a good person and positive person, you just give it to everyone freely, and you don't charge anyone, and you make sure the status quo stays the same, yada yada yada, good to go. But if you're bad, you can manipulate it. You can charge countries to use this power source, and then still not really eliminate the war, because now they're not fighting for resources for the power. They're fighting for resources to get money to pay for the power that you are extorting from them. And then you also have the way that Emu is kind of handling it right now. You can weaponize this power source, but again, if somebody else moves along and finds the ancient or the ancient kingdoms, weapon supply, not the ancient weapons themselves, but like these mech suits and whatever other types of weapons they had back then, you could potentially use them and create your own army and rise up against the world government. So the person who controls this mother flame is leaps and bounds ahead of everyone else as far as being able to control and manipulate the world. And that's exactly what Emu likes to do. So he's trying to monopolize this power immediately, especially now, again, like I said, because it's been confirmed with the destruction of Lelouch. Like, this is a comparable power level or power supply to what previously existed, because they used it previously on God Valley, so they know what it was capable of. Then they use it now with the new power supply with the Mother Flame on Lelouch, and it has the same effect. Island gone. Okay, we've got it. We need to secure it. Get rid of any potential security risk, aka Vegapunk. And now we are truly unstoppable, or nearly unstoppable. I would say they're not completely unstoppable, because Emu still hasn't been able to secure Luffy's Devil Fruit, the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika. You know what I mean? We know that he's been trying to acquire that fruit for 800, because it essentially creates his arch enemy and raises his power level to the maximum. And if he could control the ancient weapons, the power supply to power all these ancient weapons, and the Nika Devil Fruit, then he would truly have no way to be opposed. I'm not even sure if Blackbeard could oppose him. But again, speaking of Blackbeard, we saw the last time we were at Egghead, we saw a Blackbeard ship approaching Egghead. And that begs the question, who specifically from Blackbeard's crew is on that ship? Is it Teach himself? Is it one of the Titanic captains? And also, why are they at Egghead? Like, did they specifically get word that Luffy was heading that direction, or did they just assume? Or a theory that kind of started to pop into my head was potentially maybe Kuzan was aware of, stuff that Vegapunk was doing, because he was an admiral. In Film Z, even though it's not canon, we saw that the admirals and Kuzan knew about the Dynastones, even though that was like a top secret technology and they were trying to keep them all hush-hush. They knew about them. So in this sense, could we have Kuzan potentially knowing about the Mother Flame? And he might not specifically know details and exactly what it is, but again, Blackbeard seems to have this weird way of like knowing about things that he really shouldn't know, or we don't understand how he could possibly know. And he's very smart and stupid at the same time. But could he be making a move to capture Vegapunk in order to secure the Mother Flame for himself and really put himself into position to become a ruler of the world and be in contention for that title, against Emu? Is he aware of Emu? I'm not entirely sure. I don't think so at this point, but it's a possibility. But I think it's a definite possibility that he could have been informed by Kuzan of this, power supply. And then you might be wondering, for the people that are still hoping that Kuzan isn't evil, it could have just been an offhand comment that he was making or discussing, bringing up Vegapunk. Oh yeah, he's working. He made the pacifistas. You know, he made the seraphims. He was working on this crazy power supply to power the entire world. And then, you know, Blackbeard be like, wait, what was that? Power. Okay, that sounds interesting. You know what I mean? So it really, like, we just briefly mention the mother flame in this chapter as Imu tells them to use it, and then it automatically gets associated with Uranus. And okay, yes, it seems pretty obvious it's a power supply, but I think it's understated how significant and relevant the creation of this power supply is. And it also begs the question, because it seemed like Vegapunk was like, I'm still working on this power supply, so it's still not entirely perfected yet, but it's at a level that's usable by Imu. So he's determined, okay, let's just use it, get it whatever it's at right now, because it's starting to become too dangerous to allow him to continue, knowing what we know that was revealed by York, or whichever one was the one that sold him out. But again, this power supply could potentially change the power dynamic of the entire world, depending on who gets it. If Luffy and the gang get Vegapunk out of there and protect it, you know, they could potentially have Vegapunk improve upon it and make it even stronger to counteract the what Imu was able to salvage from it. But if Imu gets it and kills Vegapunk, then nobody else really has the potential to create this technology and to get on par with him without Imu being able to take them out first. But then again, if Blackbeard gets it, then that puts him more into the contention of, okay, now I can control the world. Maybe I can take on the world government or overthrow the world government. Again, depending on his level of knowledge of the Gorosei and Imu and everything like that. And yeah, that's my theory, is just that this power supply, this mother flame that we, you know, introduce, that sometimes I feel like it gets a little bit eclipsed because there was so much other hype information in this chapter, is going to have such a massive significance later on down the line. Just like the development of atomic energy in our world, how it had, you know, such massive cultural impacts in so many different ways, in war, in medicine, in renewable energy and energy sources and stuff like that. You know, it's just, there's so many parallels between it. And when you think about the importance of atomic energy in today's society, and even atomic weapons, and just the scares that we get, people threatening, countries threatening to use them even now, and the threat is still real. That's what we have going on in One Piece right now. And again, because of the cultural significance, especially with the Japanese people, you know, I think this is Oda's way of kind of shedding his sentiment on the issue, as well as creating this epic tool that's going to kind of fly under the radar as far as its significance and the power dynamic of the world moving forward, as we move towards, heading towards Laugh Tale, as we move towards the final battle. You know what I mean? The person that controls this power going into the final battle, heading towards Laugh Tale, I believe will put them leaps and bounds ahead going into that final battle. So I believe that's why Imu's over here trying to take out Vegapunk. That's why potentially Blackbeard's on the move to Vegapunk. And that's why it seems the world and fate is bringing Vegapunk and Luffy together in order to kind of to save the world, for Luffy to be the liberator and to liberate them once and for all from the oppression of the world government. If, you know, Luffy liberates Vegapunk and eventually gets him free to spread his power supply for free to everyone before anyone else can take control of it. So let me know what you guys thought about this. Do you guys think I'm off about the significance of this mother flame? Do you guys think it's not a power supply? Do you think it's a weapon itself? I'm pretty sure everyone does, but I could be wrong. As always, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed to the channel. Hit the bell icon if you want to be notified of my future videos. Smash that like button. Make sure to drop a comment. Let me know what you thought. Let me know what you thought of the video. Let me know if you got a different theory. I love to respond to comments. And yeah, have a wonderful day, guys.